URL Zero-Touch Provisioning. Module Objectives. In this module, we will understand an overview of the URL ZTP process. What are the prerequisites that have to be in place? Scenarios where we can use the URL ZTP method to onboard Versa SD-WAN branches. We will then understand how to create a template for a device to be onboarded using URL ZTP. Activating a device using URL ZTP. And, finally, we will understand how to verify if the device has been successfully onboarded. And we will also look at a few common issues that you might encounter when doing a URL ZTP. URL ZTP Overview. URL Zero-Touch Provisioning is one of the widely used methods of activating a Versa SD-WAN branch appliance. With URL-based ZTP, a site administrator activates a VOS device after receiving an email that includes a link to the staging and post-staging controller. The administrator connects to the device using a laptop or mobile phone and clicks the link. The controller completes the device activation. URL-based ZTP decouples a particular hardware device from a branch location. This means you can activate any hardware that is running an appropriate version of VOS software. The URL-based ZTP process also allows device activation to be performed using a post-staging controller. Prerequisites. In this section, we will understand the prerequisites for configuring URL ZTP. Laptop configured as a DHCP client. Versa VOS running DHCP on the LAN interface. Template configured with URL ZTP to onboard the appliance. WAN link should be terminated on the VNI 0/0 interface. In this section, we will understand the scenarios in which the URL ZTP would be a preferred method. When the customer has a huge install base, with large number of branches. Unavailability of a skilled technician to deploy the SD-WAN appliance in the site. To reduce implementation cost, and repeat visits to activate due to manual error at the time of activation. URL ZTP method is one where the customer does not require any skilled engineer to onboard and activate the Versa appliance at branch. Once the template is configured, an email is sent to the site engineer. When the site administrator connects his laptop to the appliance, he will receive a DHCP IP from the Versa appliance, which acts as a DHCP server. Then the user clicks on the URL received in the email to activate the Versa appliance. We will look at this call flow in detail. Configure the workflow template, the device group, and device, with the required URL ZTP information. Once the configuration is done, share the URL to the site administrator. This is the URL which the administrator will use to initiate the URL ZTP process. Once the device is powered on, with the Internet WAN connected to VNI 0/0 interface, it gets a DHCP IP assigned for the WAN interface. The WAN can be any transport, even MPLS, and the DHCP itself is not mandatory. Next, the administrator will connect the laptop on the LAN interface of the VOS appliance, VNI 0/1. The appliance allocates IP address to the laptop. Once the laptop is connected, the administrator clicks on the URL received in the email and initiates the ZTP process to activate the appliance. Once the URL ZTP is initiated, the following configurations are committed via HTTPS using REST API calls. Check controller reachability. Check certificates. Configure device parameters. Configure tunnel parameters. Authenticate the IC with PSK towards the controller. When the CPE connects with the staging controller, the controller informs the director of the CPE entry. Director will then push the post-staging configuration to the CPE via the netconf session. Once the configuration is pushed to the CPE will go for a reboot, and once it comes up, it will establish connectivity with the controller over IPsec, and then forms the MPI-BGP session. Next, we will look at how to create a template and a device group to do a URL ZTP. We will now understand how to create a device template and a device group to provision a device using the URL ZTP process. We will also look at updating the bind data information, or the device configuration for the device to be onboarded, and generate the link to perform the URL ZTP. To create a template, click on Workflow, Templates, and click on Add Template to create a new template. For this discussion, we will create a simple device template, with one WAN transport, and one LAN interface and a full mesh topology. Since we have already looked at, in detail, on how to create the different templates in the Versa director, we will just have an overview of the same in this section, covering the aspects that are relevant to the URL ZTP process. Create a SD-WAN post-staging template. Give a template name. The template type will be a post-staging template. Select the organization. Type of SD-WAN topology. Associate the controllers. Choose the analytics cluster. And choose the appropriate service tier. Next, in the Interfaces tab, note that we choose DHCP option for the WAN link. Next, we have to create the device group, enabled with the URL ZTP functionality. To create a device group, go to Configuration, Devices, and then Device Group. Give the device group name, organization name, and then associate the post-staging template to the device group. In this example, we have enabled two-factor authentication. So, we need to provide the contact details in the Contact Information tab. Next, we have to configure the URL ZTP. Click on the URL-based ZTP tab on the Device Group Configuration dialog. Select the URL-based ZTP option. Next we have to specify if the controller is a pre-staging, or a staging controller. In our case, this is a staging controller. Select the controller, and the VPN profile information required for the branch to reach the controller and then authenticate IKE and IPsec. Optionally, we can also use an OTP to start the activation. Click on OK, to complete the device group configuration. Next, we have to create the device, and configure the bind data. We will now create the device, using the device workflow. Click on Add Device to create a new device. Give the device name, the serial number, and choose the correct device group, give the location information. Next, in the case of URL ZTP activation, we need to apply configuration in the URL ZTP tab. The authentication information is auto-generated, and can be modified if required. In this case, we will leave it as it is. Next, we have to configure the network information. In this case, it is a DHCP IPv4. Select it. The DNS entry can be left blank, for the device to get it while getting the IP via DHCP. In this case, we will define the DNS server. Next, we need to update the bind data information. In this case, we have only the LAN information that has to be updated, as the WAN is configured to get an IP via DHCP. Click on Deploy, to deploy this device. Next, we need to get the URL for activation. To do this, we need to access the hardware inventory in the Versa director. To access the hardware inventory, click on Administration, Inventory, and then click on Hardware to view the list of devices that have been configured on the director. We will now choose the device which we just configured. To do the URL ZTP activation, we have two options to access the URL. 1. Send an email to the remote site administrator using the Send Email option. When we click on it, we can type the email address of the recipient to whom this URL has to be sent. The other option is to get the URL ZTP info by clicking on the URL ZTP info icon. We then get the URL. We can copy this, and share it with the administrator on site, to activate the device. We will now understand how to activate a device using URL ZTP. First, we need to verify if the device is in default configuration. To view this, use the Show Interfaces Brief, CLI command. In this case, we see that the device is not in default configuration. To load the default configuration, use the Load Merge Commit CLI command. Once this operation is complete, verify if the device is in default configuration using the Show Interfaces Brief, CLI command. An activation email is sent to the site engineer. The site engineer should connect the WAN cable to VNI 0/0 port, and the laptop to VNI 0/1 port, and then click on Activate to initiate the URL ZTP process. Once we click on the activation URL, Versa VOS Appliances Web UI is displayed. This also gives instructions to the site administrator, where to connect the WAN port, and how to verify if the port is up. Before we start the activation process, we can check the system services by clicking on the System tab on this GUI. Once all connections and services are verified, click on the Start Activation button in the URL. This will initiate the ZTP process. Once we click on Start Activation, the box checks for reachability on the WAN link. Next, it checks the certifications, and then starts configuration of the device. At this point, the REST API calls are initiated. Then the site administrator will get an email to claim the device. Click on Claim Device. Once we click on Claim Device, we get directed to a URL, where we need to get the verification code. We can choose to send it over email, or SMS. Enter that code to claim the device. Now the device registration is complete, and the configuration gets committed. Once the configuration is complete, the CPE will check the controller reachability, and director reachability. Once this is done, CPE will get the post-staging configuration from the director, and complete the activation process. The device will get booted with the post-staging configuration. In the next section, we will understand how to verify the post-staging configuration. After activating the device, we will now understand how to verify if the device has been successfully onboarded, and the service status. Once the device get booted up with the new config, use the Show Interfaces brief CLI command to view the status of LAN and WAN. The PTVI tunnels towards the controller should be up. If PTVI is down, there could be an issue with the IPv4 reachability between the appliance and the controller. This command also shows the virtual routers to which the interfaces are mapped. Next, we have to verify the branch-to-branch and the branch-to-controller data path. Use the Show Interfaces Dynamic Tunnels CLI command to verify if the DTVI interfaces are up. To verify if the SLA is up between the branch and the controller, and between the branch and other branches, use the SLA Monitor Status commands. If SLA is down between any of the branches, then it indicates an underlying transport issue. These are some of the basic tests we can do to verify the service status of a VOS appliance after onboarding. More detailed verification steps are covered in the Service Activation Checks module. We will look at a few possible issues which could cause an URL ZTP process to fail. An underlay transport issue. Branch serial number is misconfigured. IPsec SA flapped, and the controller assigns two IP addresses. A failed IC session, due to mismatch in parameters. And a possible firewall in the customer environment which is blocking the ports required for Versa SD-WAN. Summary. In this module, we discussed about the URL ZTP process, the prerequisites that have to be in place, scenarios where we can use the URL ZTP method to onboard Versa SD-WAN branches, how to create a template for a device to be onboarded using URL ZTP, activating a device using URL ZTP, how to verify if the device has been successfully onboarded, and potential problems that could cause an URL ZTP process to fail.